Hey guys, sorry it took me a little bit. It took me a couple of days. I was gonna come up here and do this yesterday, but things happen. But I'm here today with a DVD review that I've wanted to do for a long time now, and I'm excited to finally come up here and do it. With the recent events of CM Punk losing the AEW title to Jon Moxley, was really hoping Punk would win, but you know what? I like Jon Moxley, so I'm okay with it. We'll be discussing that whole situation maybe tomorrow in another video if this one gets uploaded at a decent hour. So, we are here. CM Punk, Best in the World DVD review. So, I'm not going to be showing, I guess I could show you this card and everything, but, I can't see what is what, so, I'm just going to let you guys look at it. Obviously, there's Punk on the cover. I don't know if he has the WWE title in that picture or not, because that's when this was released during his championship run. That second one where he went 434 days or something like that. So, open it up. And I don't know if the description is inside on this side or on that side, but there's that flap. And without taking this card, I'm going to show you. I'm just going to show you here. That's this card for this one. What the heck. There's this card for this one. And then there's that side. I don't I don't know any of the images on this case. There's probably pictures of Punk, obviously, but I don't know if there's anyone else in these pictures with him. Like I said in the other video I did the other day, I can't see. So bear with me if I don't describe anything visual, unless I know what it actually looks like. And then we'll get into the DVD review in a second. Disc 2. Can you guys see this okay? Let me know in the comments if I need to change anything with my camera. Because I'm using a new camera on a new phone, so. Yeah, that's disc 2. And disc 3. Maybe if I can get it out without doing anything. Okay. Yep. Disc 3. I don't know if there's any match listing behind this or not, so I don't know what the match listing is on this, but I know all the matches on here, so we'll just. Alright. Now the rest of this is just going to be me talking about it. So this is a really good documentary. Probably one of the most unique documentaries that WWE has ever done. This is right up there with my Stone Cold DVD, or with the Stone Cold DVD, and I will be reviewing that in a later date. I watched this again today, the documentary portion, so it was fresh in my mind, because I knew I was going to come up here and forget something if I just came up here and did it. So, it starts off with a little, clip or video of him basically saying that he was the guy that nobody expected to make it to WWE, and he got through all these roadblocks, and apparently loved defending a lot of people that put up those roadblocks, Which, that's just him. If people take him as arrogant, then, yeah, that's fine. But, sometimes you've got to be like that in order to succeed. Because, if you're freaking nice to everyone, they're going to take advantage of you. I'm not saying don't be nice to people. I'm just saying don't let it get to a point where you don't look out for yourself. Because, sometimes you got to look out for yourself. And Punk does that very well. I'm not saying I don't know CM Punk personally, but from what I understand, he has friends, he has people he cares about, people that care about him. But, if you get in his way, or God help you, if he thinks he did something to offend him, But anyway, they showed this music video of him to the video, it's got, just what a day for him in Chicago is. Or what a day in the life of CM Punk is in Chicago. Now, I don't know what song it is that they made the video. I'm guessing it was an Operation Ivy song. Or one of those bands that he likes. Maybe you musicians in the comments can help me out with that one. I could just look it up, but... Then it gets into his childhood. He wasn't close with his family. You could hear it in his voice. And he said it was therapy hour, he could care less, but he just wishes that he could have gotten, some of those emotional needs or resources that his brother apparently got. He said his brother got to go to college and everything like that, and he just spent all his money and flunked out, and Punk never got to do that. There's another story I'll get to in a minute about his brother stealing from him, but I guess he basically got tired of it and said, you know what, peace out, I'm going to live with my best friend, and went to live with his friend, and I guess he was kind of adopted by them, or whatever you want to call it, but he moved in with his best friend, and I don't know if it was his best friend, but it was someone he was close to, and then he talks about his dad showing up one day to pick him up from his Little League practice in baseball, and his dad just getting in the car and throwing up and all this stuff, and Punk didn't know what it was. Punk thought his dad had cancer or something, because he was, he's a kid, he doesn't know. He doesn't know any better. That's not his fault. But, he gets home and gets on his bike and starts crying, and then people had to tell him, your dad's an alcoholic, he wastes himself. And he vowed that day to never touch alcohol or drugs or anything like that, so he went straight edge. Talks about his, school being pretty hard for him because he was into all these punk rock bands and all these, comic book people, and he was into wrestling, and people made fun of him for that. And, I started reading, he was reading a magazine in detention one time. He never said what he got in detention for, but he talks about this band called Minor Threat who did an interview about being straight edge, and he kind of adopted that from them and took that as a lifestyle, the no drinking or no... straight edge, and let me tell you something, I'm straight edge. I said that the other day when I was talking about CM Punk's AEW debut. I know what straight edge means. Straight edge doesn't just mean, no drinking, no drugs, no smoking, anything like that. It also means, not necessarily not doing what society says, but kind of just having this carefree lifestyle where you're comfortable with yourself, and you're kind of like this punk rock culture where you DIY, do it yourself. That's cool. Kind of being a rebel a little bit. being cool, not caring who you offend. Which, yeah, you don't want to offend anyone, but it's like, people get so offended today, and I don't mean to get off topic or anything, but like, this kind of fits with what I'm talking about here with this documentary. You don't want to offend anyone, obviously, but people get offended by everything anymore. Everything. Like, to the point where they're taking down statues and whatnot. But back to the video. Back to the documentary. He says he doesn't remember the exact moment he started watching wrestling, but the one that's been beaten into the ground, as he says, is the one where, I guess, Roddy Piper smashed a coconut over Jimmy Snuka's head or something like that, and then he got together with one of his friends and started this backyard wrestling federation thing they literally called it the Lunatic Wrestling Federation, LWF. And, he claimed that they started drawing crowds of like 300 or 3,000 people, something like that. I don't know the exact number, but close to that. But then, they would go to these shows and just heckle these people. And like, Justin Roberts was interviewed for this, the Raw ring announcer back in the day. Said that Punk went up to Roberts and kind of went, "Hey, we're taking over, kid," or kind of just, I don't want to say cocky, but like, just like, "Hey, this is our time now." And then people would always say, "Oh, they're not trained," or "They're not whatever." And then Punk realized, hey, maybe what they're saying is true, then we should go get trained. And he looked up schools and found Steel Domain, which was run by Ace Steel and Danny Dominion. And that's where he met Colt Cabana. And it's a shame that it's a shame they're not friends anymore. It sucks, because I like both of them. But Cabana was interviewed for this. He didn't like Punk at first. He walked in, because Punk was walking in, he had all these tattoos and looked kind of, like a punk rocker. Which part of me thinks that's how he got the CM Punk name, or came up with it. Because WWE didn't trademark that. He was CM Punk when he was, like, even before he got into the big, like, even after, before he was on the independent scene. Like, he was a teenager when he came up with that. But, Colt didn't like him at first, and then they kind of became friends, and, because Punk and Cabana were complete opposites. Colt, I think, was on, like, a football scholarship, maybe, or played football or something like that, and Punk, at the time, wasn't very athletic, and then, like, except for the Little League stuff, but, they talk about Colt Cabana and CM Punk being, like, the match of the indies in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like, everyone wanted that match. Colt versus Punk, or Cabana versus Punk, and that was, like, the match that everyone wanted. And then they talk about going to IWA. They travel all over the East Coast, East Coast, whatever, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, all those places. And they talk about IWA kind of being their first real home, I guess, or promotion. And from what I understand, IWA was kind of like ECW. In a way, I've only watched a couple IWA matches. I'm sure you can find some on YouTube if you look. And then he talks kind of about his feud with, he talks about his feud with Chris Hero. But before that, he talks about, he credits one of his ex-girlfriends for kind of coming up with his character. I mean, it's his character, but it's his personality also, or his, like, he took his real life of being straight edge and put it into his, like, character as a wrestler, which I thought was cool, because that's, like JR said, the most, like, iconic or great characters in wrestling are part of when they're authentic and organic and just, there. Punk was one of those people. Austin was one of those people. But anyway, one of his ex-girlfriends was interviewed for this, and she talked about being like, well, why don't you just become a bad guy? Well, you're a bad guy. Why don't you just start doing this? Straight edge means I'm better than you, and like I don't drink and I don't do that. Like, just do that. And Punk thought, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And then, she talked about where the X comes in, because you know how Punk always like tapes his fist or does the wrist tape in X's. He does that because when back in the early 2000s and all that, when people started adopting the straight edge lifestyle, it was a lot of like punk rock bands that would do it too, and they would keep like an X as solidarity or something, or the straight edge symbol or something, and I thought that was cool. Or like a punk rock symbol. I think of it as more of a punk rock symbol too, because I've seen it on, I have a couple of Green Day shirts that have it, and I have a couple of Nirvana shirts that are like that, but like, yeah, I think it's a combination of the punk rock and straight edge lifestyles with the X. But then he talks about his feud with Chris Hero. And they do this match, kind of like Cabana and Punk before Hero and Punk. They go to Pittsburgh, all those places, pretty much. Well, they go back to IWA. They go back there, and they're doing their last night in this barn or building or something like that. And Punk wanted to be like, you know what? It's our last night here, so I'm just gonna rip this thing down. Like, they had a match, Chris Hero and CM Punk. I don't know if it's on YouTube or not, but they had a tables, ladders, and chairs match that was like 2 out of 3 falls or something, or one or the other. Maybe that match was. I don't know. But they tried to rip the building down, and like, because, this is their last night there anyway, it's probably going to be condemned anyway, so, why not? Whatever. And then they get into his Ring of Honor career. Gabe Sapolsky, the booker of Ring of Honor at the time, wanted Colt Cabana and CM Punk. He wanted that match, because everyone had it, and he signed both of them. That's on Colt's DVD. The only thing that I'm kind of disappointed in is that they didn't ask Ring of Honor to put, or if they could put any of his matches from Ring of Honor on here, because that would have been so cool. I guess it's a WWE documentary, but come on. That's why I wish DVDs were still being made, because maybe Triple H would do that now. I don't know. Probably have to ask Tony Khan, but so they both end up in Ring of Honor, and his first real feud is with Raven. And he credits Raven with sitting him down and teaching him the psychology of the business. Like, this is why you don't do this. This is why we do this. Do this because, whatever. Raven kind of set him down and taught him himself. And I've seen a couple of those matches on YouTube with him and Raven. Oh my god. You want to talk about freaking ECW style matches? Go look one of them up. Go on Ring of Honor's YouTube channel and look those up. They're really good. Then they get into his feud with Samoa Joe. they didn't even get into, I wish I would have got into this, but there's a match on the Colt Cabana DVD, that Ring of Honor put out, where CM Punk and Colt Cabana, win the tag team titles from the Briscoes. I wish I could have, brought that up, but they didn't. But his next major feud was Samoa Joe, and they had that trilogy of matches, which I've only seen 2 of. There was one free match on YouTube, and then Ring of Honor put out, a 9-hour marathon of, 19 matches or something from each year. But I love how they didn't even mention that he had a TNA run, but he kind of mentions going to Nashville on Wednesday nights in wrestling, and that's where TNA was when it first started, on Wednesdays in Nashville, because they didn't have a TV deal yet, or they weren't doing weekly. They were called weekly pay-per-views back then. But and he was like, there's nothing left for me to prove, and he went into Gabe Sapolsky's office and sorry. But he goes into Gabe Sapolsky's office, and Gabe says, "You signed the contract, didn't you, with WWE?" Punk's like, "Yeah." And then he tells the story of how him and Gabe basically swerved everybody. He's like, "Look, they're gonna know that this is gonna come out. Someone's gonna leak this out. Let's make them think that this is my last night in Ring of Honor, and I'll win the Ring of Honor title, and people can think he's taking the Ring of Honor belt to WWE." And so they did the match. I think it was Austin Aries that he beat for the title, and then he went heel on the crowd, and he he signed his WWE contract on the Ring of Honor belt, and basically called the fans idiots, because it's you fell for it, and they swerved everybody. And then a couple weeks later, they had the big match, him and Colt Cabana, in Chicago, where they're both from. That match was on the Colt Cabana DVD too. Then he talks about basically kind of his workout routine. He likes to run a lot. I do too. It helps. But we get into his WWE career, and Gabe Sapolsky tells Paul Heyman about him. They send him directly to developmental, and Paul Heyman talks about how no one wanted to use him, and he talks about getting scolded for wanting someone to just draft CM Punk up to the main roster. And they just were telling him, he doesn't even belong on OVW television, because that was their developmental system at the time. There was no NXT back then. But they just kind of go through with, people just not wanting him there because they didn't understand what they got with him. All they did was sign someone that they thought had buzz, had publicity. They just signed him because they knew that he was a big star, but they didn't understand the quality of what he could do. And so he talks about going into Paul Heyman's office and after each show and learning how to edit and put together a television show for that week. And then they get the ECW deal. They started the revamped ECW. You guys ready for this? Yeah. They tried to revamp ECW in 2006. Did it work? Wait for it. Nope, it didn't. You cannot build that brand around Tommy Dreamer himself. Tommy, I love you, and I hope you watch this one day. I watch your podcast. It's awesome. But, because They just didn't want to. They just didn't want to do anything with him. And Paul Heyman was like, you know what? Fine, let me take him. I'll put him. I'll build this revamped ECW around him, or try to at least. And as much as Paul Heyman wanted to do that, Vince was gonna be telling him what to do or whatever. It's not Paul Heyman's ECW anymore. But people didn't like Punk because they didn't trust Paul either. Because Paul could be. You saw it. You guys know. You ECW fans out there. I mean, I am too, but some of you have been watching it longer than me. But his ECW run didn't go too well. They were gonna put him in the main event in the Elimination Chamber and have him walk out the champion, or at least eliminate the Big Show first. Vince didn't want that, and so Paul Heyman quit. They talk about his title run, or his feud with John Morrison. Fun fact, that feud would have been against Chris Benoit had that tragedy not happened. But then they give him the Money in the Bank briefcase at the following WrestleMania, and they have him cash in, and they just didn't do anything with him. Like, he was the world champion on Raw, and they didn't do anything with him. That's basically what they basically did this to him in 2012 too. I mean, kind of. I mean, he was a bigger deal at that point, but not to the point where he was like Cena level, I guess. But yeah, they had the world title on him, and they just didn't. It was a completely forgettable run, and it wasn't his fault. Bad creative, not knowing what to do with them, because they didn't get it. They didn't get him for some reason. So he doesn't even like lose the title. There's like this backstage segment with Randy Orton, and I think Unforgiven 2008. When they were doing those championship scramble matches, and I think he's doing an interview and Randy confronts him or something, and Punk says something to him, and Randy basically punts him in the head. And he doesn't even lose the belt. Like, Jericho, no offense, but Jericho and Shawn didn't need that title for their feud. Their feud was good as it was. That feud did not need the title. You could have just kept that on Punk. You could have had someone lose the title while Punk, or you could have had Punk lose the title if he was in the match. You didn't need to give that belt to Jericho and Michaels. No offense, guys, but you guys had a good thing going anyway, without the title. So he wins the tag team title with Kofi Kingston. And then, he wins all these mid-card titles, tag team titles, Intercontinental title. And, they're not doing anything with him. They're giving him these titles, but they're like, oh, just so you know, you don't matter. But then comes Money in the Bank match, WrestleMania 25. He wins it again. This time, he cashes in. Well, before that, he talked about Vince and Michael Hayes coming up to him that day and being like, we want you to be a heel. No, we have a challenge for you. We want you to be a heel. And Punk says, okay, I can be a heel. What's the challenge? Vince says, well, we want you to be a heel. And Punk was like, did you guys just not see any of my Ring of Honor stuff? I can be a heel. So then they put him in the feud of the year. I'm sorry. That was feud of the year. They put him with Jeff Hardy. And then they do a series of matches. And then they have that cage match on SmackDown where the loser leaves WWE for the world title and Punk wins it. Then they tell him that he's dropping the belt to The Undertaker. And they're like, oh, we don't think he can wrestle Undertaker. We don't think he can hang with Undertaker, and Punk was offended by that. He's like, okay, I'll show you. And they get into the Straight Edge Society stuff, which I thought was really cool. He's like, okay, fine. And then they have Luke Gallows with him. And then Serena. And then you guys remember when they would go into the crowd and they would like shave people's heads or whatever? I thought that was cool. It was different. It was unique. And I guess Punk went home and wrote all this stuff down. Wrote like 14 weeks of television in like a notebook and put it on Vince's office and said, this is what I'm doing for the next couple months. And Vince was like, okay, whatever. And then that worked out for a while, and then they, of course, put their spin on it, and then it wasn't so great anymore. It got buried. I think it got buried the night that the Nexus came in. No offense, Nexus, but you guys buried the Straight Edge Society. Then they get into him they completely skip the new Nexus thing, like where he joins the Nexus. They skip his commentary run, which I thought they should have got into, but it's his documentary. I'm not going to tell him what to talk about. But they get into him wanting to leave WWE because he thinks it sucks. He's burnt out, he's tired, he's sick, he's done. And then believe me, he was in 2014, but he apparently was in 2011 too. But he has this conversation with Michael Hayes, like, I don't want to leave, but I don't like the way things are here. I want things to change. And Michael tells him, oh, sometimes you just gotta go with the system. And Punk says, no, you don't. No, don't. No. You make change by standing up for it. You don't just change it by sitting back and watching things happen. Or hoping that it will. And I totally agree. I agree. They get to the Thomas and Mack Center, and they're in this meeting, or someone walks up to him and goes, hey, guess what? You get to air your grievances today. They're gonna give you a live mic tonight, and they're gonna let you air your grievances. And he texts Colt Cabana, and Colt's like, yeah, he didn't believe it. And they played the whole pipe bomb segment on the DVD, the documentary portion of it. They played that whole segment. And you have certain people reacting to it, like Triple H and Kofi Kingston. That was the Austin 316 moment all over again. I mean, and it was. The pipe bomb, the CM Punk promo in Vegas was my generation's version of Austin's 316 promo. Now, granted, Austin's promo is more iconic, but to me, Punk's is more memorable because I actually lived through it. Austin, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to say that your promo wasn't good, but I mean, I just wasn't here for it, that's all. And I wish I would have, because I missed out on a really good time period with Austin and McMahon and stuff. To get into his match with John Cena in Chicago on July 17th, the day that his contract supposedly runs out. He had an extended to a 2-day deal. He had a 2-day extension. He wins the title, and he tells the story about him going home in his gear and just putting the belt in the fridge and then chugging a glass of water and tweeting it. Oh my god, that's funny. But then, talks about coming back and re-signing, and Zack Ryder tells this really cool story about Punk basically standing up for his YouTube channel, because Zack had a YouTube channel, and Punk was telling everyone, "Hey, you gotta check this out," or he got Zack an audience that way, or helped him out something like that. So that was cool. Everyone once said that they considered Punk to be a leader. Daniel Bryan claimed, he doesn't want to be. He wants to be the guy in matches that he's in there for 30 minutes. He wants to have 30-minute matches with these guys. I mean, I believe it. You can hear it in his voice. He just wants to do his job and have fun with it. That's what it is. I mean, he wants to come to work and have fun. And put people over. And have it make sense. I feel like that's what, I mean, like I said, I don't know Punk personally, but I feel like that's what that is. So, that's the end of the documentary. For bonus features, we get this story about him talking about him fracturing his skull, and he didn't even go to the hospital to heal it, because back then he was, like, super straight edge. I mean, he still is, but, like, he thought, oh, you can't take any medication because that's what straight edge means. It doesn't, by the way. It just means don't abuse it, Take it when necessary. Don't take it for recreational use, But he tells that story where he just stayed at his friend's house and slept in this room and had this VCR playing and had a bottle of Gatorade and whatnot. And then there's this story about John Cena and Triple H. John Cena and Triple H were interviewed for this bonus feature where they talk about where at WrestleMania 22, Punk was hanging off of John Cena's gangster car, toting a Tommy gun, in Chicago. Paul Heyman tells that story earlier about that I mentioned earlier about him getting in an argument with Vince about Punk in the Elimination Chamber that year. Because December to Dismember, looking back on it, it was I can see why people would think that was a bad pay-per-view. I mean, it was alright. But it still sucked to some degree. Because there was only like 6 matches. Like, I could sit there and watch that pay-per-view and it just go by fast. Not because I'm into it, but because it's like, there needs to be more on this show. I don't get it. But that show was pretty bad. I mean, it's not... I don't think it's that bad, but I can see why people would think it was. It wasn't an ECW show, that's for sure. So I don't know, that might be all the bonus features. I'm not really sure. If I missed any, I apologize. So for matches, we get a match against Brent Albright in OVW. We have his debut match against Justin Credible on the August 1st, 2006 edition of ECW on Sci-Fi. We have an ECW title match against John Morrison. We get I think there's like 12 matches on here. We get I think we get the Money in the Bank ladder match from WrestleMania 24. We get Kofi Kingston and CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase for the tag team titles. Match against William Regal for the Intercontinental title. That's on disc 1, by the way. Disc 2 matches, we got a tables, ladders, and chairs match from SummerSlam 2009 against Jeff Hardy. Or wait, I think that Money in the Bank ladder match is on disc 2. Yeah, it is, sorry. So anyway, you get WrestleMania ladder match on disc 2. You get a tables, ladders, and chairs match with Jeff Hardy, SummerSlam 2009. Over the Limit 2010, we have Rey Mysterio versus CM Punk. Stipulations in that match where I think if Punk won, Rey would have to join the Straight Edge Society, and if Rey won, Punk would have to shave his head. We got that awesome freaking title match between him and John Cena, Money in the Bank 2011. We get a title match. Chris Jericho and CM Punk from WrestleMania 28. I remember that feud very well. No, that's where Jericho hit him with the bottle or something and slipped. I don't know. Then you have a match. I don't know. There's this segment with like him and John Laurinaitis in the back or something. Must have been in a pay-per-view. It must have been Over the Limit 2012 or something. It was either Over the Limit or Money in the Bank, but it's against Daniel Bryan. So that's what we got for matches. Overall, I thought this was a really good DVD. One of the best ones they've ever done. Wish they would have put more matches on here, or like more segments. But like, you know, I'm not complaining. It's a good DVD. It's good for what it is. I love it. Probably up there with Stone Cold's documentary and DVD, and that thing is loaded. And I'll review that at some point. Possibly tomorrow. Maybe. I don't know. In the next coming weeks, I will have that Stone Cold DVD review. As always, if you like what you see, please like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Hope y'all have a good night, and peace.